All right, so I am back in these blizzard slash wintry whiteout conditions. So basically, as you could tell, it's like I said before, it's hard to tell on the actual camera itself, but it's pretty hard to see, and in all honesty, it's pretty hard to live in these conditions. And if you look, you know, obviously my old shelter spot isn't complete, so there's tons of snow has gotten in there. I never had time before the winter set in to set any greenery, or there's really not a lot of coniferous trees in the area. So basically what I'm going to do is set up an emergency shelter, and this is basically how you would survive in a winter condition, especially in a storm like this. So I have a tree here, I have a tree there, and I have a bunch of snow. I also have a grabber all-weather blanket. Basically is Mylar on the bottom side and tarp on the top, and then I have a Wise Owl brand tarp to set up. So what I'm going to do is it's actually pretty simple. So I have snowshoes on, and I'm going to use my snowshoes to kind of compact and move the snow around from the area that I'm going to be laying down in. You know, you don't want you kind of want to create like a little well here, and so by compacting it, you don't want to make it super big, because then that's just more area that you're going to have to heat up with your body heat, and we don't really have anything that's going to keep us warm besides our own body heat in these conditions. So as I just tamp this down, now I have like a little area to walk in. In all honesty, I really don't need these snowshoes on at the moment, so I'm going to take them off. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up the sides of the shelter and make it very, very wind resistant and airtight. Now one thing you got to think about in these conditions is it's windy, and so what I want to prevent obviously is wind from getting in, and one thing that you could do to prevent that is to pitch your tarp very, very low. You don't need a really super high tarp because it's going to be flapping around the wind the whole time, and it also prevents you from being able to stack a snow wall up on the side of it. So I'm going to get the tarp set up, get that all laid out, and then just start piling snow on the edges of it. Okay, so I spared you the boring part of just setting up the normal tarp. Now, if you could tell, I have a few pieces of wood here collected. Now, in the winter time, everybody knows that the ground freezes. You can't put you can, but it's very difficult to put a stake in the ground. Now, since I have ample snow around me, the better thing to do is actually to create a snow anchor. So basically what you do is I'm going to stamp out, or rather dig out a distance over here where I desire to put my snow anchor. And basically what you do, sorry, I don't have a tripod with me today, so I'm going to be trying to get this the best I can. But what I'm going to do is actually tie a clove hitch around this and then pack snow around it so that it's a nice reliable guy out point. So now it's set in. It's just something really stupid and put my glove down in the snow. Obviously you could tell it's not like super taut, but as I pack down snow around it, it's going to actually help tighten that down and prevent that from pulling up while it's here in the snow. But the trick is you have to pack the snow down really taut around it. Otherwise, it has the potential of just getting pulled right out. So now all the snow anchors are set up, and the tent is, you know, this is a 10-foot tarp, so it's pretty splayed out. But as you can tell, like under here and on the edge over there, we have some pretty big open spots. So what I'm going to do now is just take my snowshoe I'm trying to conserve as much energy as I can because it's cold, it's whiteout conditions. So using your hands for this, you're gonna use more energy because obviously your hands don't have a lot of surface area to them. But I'm basically going to take my snowshoe and just shuffle snow into these little sections and try to cover up any open spots. And it's actually not a bad idea to even throw some over the top of your tarp or your tent, just to make sure you seal in all those corners. You know, wind will go over it now. Okay, so I have moved inside the shelter. Basically, it was getting pretty cold out there and the wind was whipping. So I am doing what I can to prevent any loss of heat through conduction, convection, or radiation. So here I am out of the elements. I'm trying to prevent any heat loss from the wind. I have a Mylar blanket and a closed cell foam pad under me. And I've also tried to seal off all the corners. Obviously, I have an opening here and behind me. Obviously I would want to close those up, but I'm not spending the night here, so if I were, I would close at least close those up a decent amount to basically prevent any heat loss that I could. So what I wanted to talk about today is a few things that could kill you while you're out in winter conditions, and especially in blizzard and whiteout conditions like this. Number one is going to be death from exposure, and that can come in ways of freezing to death. It would come in ways of hypothermia. Really, basically the idea is if you're wet in these environments and it's freezing out, then it's going to be very difficult to keep yourself warm and dry out your clothes at the same time. Really, the only saving grace in that situation would be if you can get to a shelter, a home, a car, something like that, that you can have a external source of heat. Now, really, the idea is, when you're in an environment like this, the idea is, oh, I want to get out of here. You know, these are terrible conditions. I'm not having fun or something like that. And you forget the idea that you need to stay dry, and you're overworking yourself. You're causing yourself to sweat. You're quickly dehydrating yourself through your sweat. And it gets to a point where you start to become so cold that you become lethargic, that you start making stupid decisions, i.e., going down the wrong trail, putting your compass away when you really should be following a bearing or anything like that, and it can end up being your demise. So in conditions like this, even if you are in a high stress situation, if you are in almost a panic situation, the idea is you have to go back and think about what is most important in an environment like this. You have to stay warm, you have to stay dry. The best thing that you can do is get out of the elements. So if you find a shelter, or if you find a tree that you can guy line a tarp up to, like I have here, and really in a way wait out the storm. Yeah, it sucks, you might miss your kid's birthday party, but it's either that or dying. So in an environment like this, it's a survivable environment, but I do not think it's a good idea to be traveling in conditions like this. In reality, it could end up killing you. So be very, very mindful of that, and trying not to overexpose yourself and cause yourself to either freeze to death or become hypothermic. Now, the next one is going to be navigation. Basically, the idea is in whiteout conditions, you don't have the ability to look off in the distance and see any landmarks that you can reference on your map or on a GPS. Now, if you have a GPS, you likely have a better chance of survival in these situations. But basically, what you should do is find a landmark, find a location that you're trying to get as your destination, and basically find out where your current location is. You can do that, you know, if you wake up in the morning and you have a vague idea of where you are, then that'll give you at least a general idea of where you're going to be traveling to and what bearing you need to be following. Then you pull out your compass, you find that bearing on your compass, and you walk. Hopefully that you have that compass on a lanyard so you can hang it around your neck, and you walk with that compass in front of your face, following that bearing the whole time. That'll prevent you from looking off in the distance. That'll prevent you from veering off track. But what's that most importantly going to do is that there's really one of the very few reliable ways of finding your way through in an environment with conditions like this. Now, the next thing is going to be dehydration. You know, people think, oh, it's cold, I'm not going to get dehydrated, I don't need to bring or drink as much water, which is completely wrong. In environments like this, you have to drink as much, if not more, water. Just because you're cold, it doesn't mean that your body is losing moisture through a form of sweat, through a form of respiration, through your breath, and you know, anything like that. Basically, the idea is you need to drink as much, if not more, water in cold conditions as you would in hot conditions. And just, you know, I've preached this on other videos, and I just beg everyone, make sure that you're hydrated before you go out into you know, environments like this. If your pee is anything other than clear, just use that as a basic indicator that you're not hydrated enough before you come out in the woods. Basically, the last thing, and I have found this especially today, but in the past, is trees, believe it or not, could be, in all honesty, a silent killer out here. Now, the reason that I bring up trees is when it is cold like this, for the layman's, just basically the water inside of a tree freezes and it doesn't bend any longer. It typically breaks. So if it's very windy, basically the idea is a wind gust can more easily break a tree when it's cold out like this than it could when it is warm. The tree might be a little bit more malleable or anything like that. So be very vigilant before you set up a tarp like this about the environment, or about the area that you're setting up in. Look out for any widowmakers, look out for any signs of trees that are a little suspect. Try to set up next to structures like rocks or anything like that. Those aren't going to fall, and they can even protect you if a tree falls nearby. You know, it might fall over the edge of rock as opposed to laying right across you. So be very vigilant about looking around, trying to see any widowmakers. I can't tell you how many times in Scouts we've gone around to inspect kids' tents, and you look up and there's a widowmaker hanging right above their tent. You know, it's just something that people don't think about, but in reality, especially in windy winter conditions like this, it could end up falling on you and killing you. So just be very vigilant about that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you got a couple useful tips from this, and I will see you guys next time.